anybody that happened to watch a little bit of that Texas and Iowa State game, Iowa State should have won. One of the and I don't, and this is my crimson colored glasses are off when I say this. Um, they got, and I hate to say the word cheated, because but just two horrible missed calls on one single play. I don't know, Mark, if you were able to even watch that play, but there was a targeting call, that very definition of targeting on a defensive player, on Hunter Deckers, the Iowa State quarterback, and he fumbled the ball, and it looked like his knee was very clearly down. And they called neither and gave the ball to Texas, and obviously Texas was able to run out the clock. So you don't know what's going to happen, but again, this even my point being, even though Iowa State is not anywhere near the same level offensively, they're still a very good football team that is more than capable of beating Oklahoma.
Iowa State is losing games by this much. So they're 0-4. They look awful from a record standpoint, but they are losing games by this much. They lost to Kansas by, I think, 14-11. They lost to somebody else 10-9. I think Kansas State beat them 10-9. And yeah, so that was not a game that I was focused on, but as it continued down the stretch, I left whatever game I was watching and watched the last couple drives of that game. And what I saw was the same thing that you just outlined. I get the whole premise that if the officials rule something on the field, that replay has to, beyond a shadow of a doubt, or whatever the phrasing is I'm trying to think of the word. It has to be conclusive that the ruling on the field was incorrect for them to overturn it. And if it's inconclusive, then they're going to go with the ruling on the field. I get that. However, I thought the knee was on the field and the ball was still in his hand. And I think we get a little bit too nitpicky about, was the ball slightly moving in his hand? Do we think that the football was starting to be jarred out? And then what else happened was, just prior to that play, Xavier Hutchinson was wide open down the field, ball thrown right in his lap, and he inexplicably didn't run through the catch and keep running into the end zone. He jumped, and the ball was perfectly thrown, and he drops it. Xavier Hutchinson's a tremendous receiver, but those things happen, but at a very inopportune time, because he had the game-winning touchdown thrown right to him. And that was one or two plays prior to the fumble. And not that Texas wouldn't have time. I don't remember the exact timing of it, but we're talking about in the last 45 to 50 seconds of the game. So it would have been on Texas to mount a drive to win the game. So Iowa State should have taken the lead with about 45 or 50 seconds left in the game. So Texas extremely, extremely fortunate.
Yeah, no, you're right. I didn't see. I kind of saw a couple of tweets about that, but I didn't actually see that play live again. But I saw that back on replay. And yeah, you're right. I think it was a couple of plays before, and you're right. That's odd from a guy like Hutchinson, who's probably, if not the best receiver in the Big 12 this year, certainly one of the top two or three. Just on how consistent he's been for Iowa State. But yeah, but no, you're right. I mean, they've got when you look at that the Big 12, you're right. Their biggest margin of loss is 7 points, which was at home to Baylor, and they've got the 3-point loss to Texas, 1 point loss to Kansas State, and 3-point loss to Kansas. So yeah, they're right there competitively versus where Oklahoma's losses, they've been. In 2 of the 3, they've been very non-competitive. So, I mean, if there's any benefit of the doubt, and certainly we'll talk more about this next week, but any benefit, it is going to be an 11 a.m. kickoff, which obviously those things seem to help a little bit, specifically on the road in terms of, what that environment looks like. But yeah, I think it's a game that both teams will desperately need right, for not necessarily getting into the thick of things in the Big 12 race, but more about bowl contention, and things like that. With particularly for Iowa State being at 3-4, but Oklahoma at 4-3 as well.